We are now the largest generation. We are a bit of mystery. We are the Millennials.
Our culture in Atlanta is going to be radically transformed by the Millennials.
You'll see why every state needs these new leaders.
Millennials are more well-educated, they're more tech-savvy, they're more entrepreneurial, and they're bringing an innovative way of thinking to our communities.
And why this generation could be the most important. Now, Rise of the Millennials, with Channel 2 anchors Linda Stouffer and Fred Blankenship.
Move over, baby boomers. Millennials are now the nation's largest living generation. They're also the most educated and diverse group in American history.
Here in Georgia and around the country, companies are recruiting millennials, and experts say the rise of millennials will greatly influence all of us. These faces. These Georgians are part of the next big generation known as Millennials.
Our culture in Atlanta is going to be radically transformed by the Millennials.
Born after 1981 and before 1997, across the United States, there are more than 75 million millennials.
Millennials have struggled to become financially independent, and that's why there's so much focus and attention on them. Their outlook on life, what they expect, is very, very different because of the experiences they've had with underemployment, high student loan debt, not being able to have their own home. And so they look at the world very differently, and there's so many of them that they are going to influence attitudes for decades to come.
I found what Clark said to be true as I spent time with Sean Walton. He has an education degree from Morehouse College.
Keep trying.
But his classroom is his bicycle shop in Atlanta's West End neighborhood.
So tell me about We Cycle Atlanta. What are your goals?
I want to make sure that we get more youth on wheels, and that's kind of what We Cycle Atlanta does. And wheels is an acronym, so we want them to get work ethics. You know, they have to earn their bicycles. They have to earn the things in life. Health, you know, a bicycle can be used as a tool for health as well. Economics, environment, leadership, and sustainability. Good, yes. Come on.
What is it like for you when you see a kid get it?
It's mind-blowing. You know, sometimes we underestimate what kids know or what they'll retain and what they'll remember.
Why do it this way instead of a business? Do a bike shop that makes money and donate your money to something else, or do this on the side? Why focus it this way?
I think social entrepreneurship is a really big thing when it comes to millennials. Awesome, good job. We've understood that doing things for the love of money may not necessarily place you in the place of happiness or comfort. I think that's a very large sentiment amongst millennials, and millennials also want to do things their way. So they want a certain type of freedom. And yes, you can do that in the private sector, but again, you want to be in places where you can make the most change in the nonprofit social entrepreneurship way. We have to do direct outreach when it comes to solving our problems.
Sean told me he's a minimalist. As founder of We Cycle, he gets a stipend, and he says he hardly ever drives a car.
But it's a choice.
It's a choice. I could teach, but I'm teaching my way. And I wouldn't give that freedom up for the world. Not a paycheck could keep me away from the freedom that I have.
Sean and other millennials stand out because they are the most educated generation. But that comes at a steep price. High college tuition have left many millennials with record student loan debt.
They will not have student debt till forever unless someone took out a private student loan. But overwhelmingly, student loans are federal student loans. And as the program has changed, it's become more borrower friendly and will allow millennials to not feel like they have a lifetime sentence of student loan debt.
John and Sarah Bright worried about the burdens of college debt.
We worked our butts off to have no student debt.
Yeah.
We worked hard.
The couple says one of the things they did to save money, attend college here in Georgia.
We definitely wanted to use our Hope Scholarship to our advantage. And then we both worked, part-time and full-time throughout the whole time as well. So we didn't have any student loans or anything by the end of it. We just got lucky.
The couple is now expecting their first child and they're looking to buy a home. They're also facing an unexpected money issue.
I got laid off a few months ago, so I haven't been working. And we're lucky enough that he can support us both off of his salary. So it's been, with his job change last year and then me losing mine, it's been an adjustment.
Even with this challenge, John and Sarah remain hopeful about their future.
My parents were always really optimistic about the future. Oh, you can do anything you want. You can be whatever you want when you grow up. And his parents, they got through some pretty hard times being in the military, and so I think that both of those experiences, gave us our optimism.
Yeah, definitely. And then, just knowing that if you work hard, good things will happen,
Mm-hmm.
God's got a plan, so as long as you're doing the right thing, things will fall into place.
In Metro Atlanta, there are about 1.4 million millennials. Getting more of them to live here is part of a new marketing campaign.
And make a place not as it is, but as you think it should be. Atlanta.
Choose ATL from the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce.
2015 was the first year in which the majority of the U.S. workforce were the millennial generation. So companies have, really put resources and interest in learning about millennials, how to market to them, how to attract them as employees.
There are other cities, I believe, Nashville, Austin, Raleigh. I think there are other cities that are more appealing to millennials right now. We still have some work to do.
We do have work to do. And I would say they're appealing just because they've been out there marketing themselves and attracting those millennials. And we are just getting started.
To get the attention of millennials, a team from the Chamber traveled to Austin, Texas for the annual South by Southwest Music, Tech, and Film Festival. Thousands of young people attended the week-long event.
It really was our coming out party, if you will, our first chance to really bring Atlanta to life, not here in Atlanta, but bring it to the world. So we had our good friends, the founders of Yik Yak out there. We had the executive producer of The Walking Dead.
Mayor Reed was out South by Southwest. Talk about that.
He has been a great supporter of the Choose ATL effort, and he's a leader that gets it. He's a leader that knows that that we need to be intentional about attracting this talent.
They're looking for people like Lauren Weiniger. She recently moved back home to Atlanta.
I've lived all over the world since I left. Most of my career was in New York, but I was in LA, San Francisco, South America for a year, grad school in England. And I was never one of those people who said, I'm gonna go for a couple years and then move back. It was, I'm not coming back, to be honest.
So what changed her mind?
When it really clicked, it was funny. I was on a flight, I think I was on a flight to England, to be honest, and I was just flipping through the in-flight travel magazine, and there was this whole spread on Atlanta. I was like, all right, I'm interested. Like, and reading about it and just looking at the stats, that it's number 3 to film now, that, it's ranked the number 2 place for millennials, that the 18 Fortune 500 companies and all these new ones moving. Including her own business, Growth City Partners. We're bringing both education, teaching people how to invest, and we're also bringing new and non-traditional investors to the table. And Lauren admits coming back to Atlanta is not just a smart business move. You have all these really unique neighborhoods that are popping up in these mini communities that are not that far away and that are linked by a lot of these really cool infrastructure developments, again, like the Beltline. I'm pretty sure I never want to just live in this suburban life. I do plan on getting married and having kids one day, though, and Atlanta is the kind of place where you can do that and live a really good life.
Kate Atwood from the Metro Atlanta Chamber told me there's no set number of millennials they're trying to target. What is your dream scenario here? How if you can just paint a picture of what this can be, how would it look?
I think that Atlanta, in 5 to 10 years is a top tier market, not just around the United States, but around the world, for the next generation to come and to make their mark and to really start their life here, build their career here, and then, let their legacy lie here.
It's important to what we do from here on out.
We've got to go with the tide. The world is changing, the paradigm is shifting, and so the winners will be the ones that get ahead of that and set that course, and more importantly, I think, set that environment that's ripe for them and their values to really prosper.
These Atlanta millennials run the popular and controversial social media app, Yik Yak.
In a typical company, you wouldn't have ping pong and you wouldn't hand out beers either, right?
This is true.
The reason why they don't ever plan to leave Atlanta, next. And everyone complains about Atlanta's traffic, but millennials think they have the answer.
It's too much money not to do this. It's too much money and lost opportunity for the region.
Rise of the Millennials is a family-to-family special. Brought to you by American Signature Furniture, Northside Hospital, Southwest Airlines, Kroger, and Scana Energy. Rise of the Millennials, a Channel 2 special, continues now with Linda Stouffer and Fred Blankenship.
Millennials are the most connected generation. They not only use the internet, mobile devices, and social media, they're leading the way in creating new digital tools.
2 millennials from Atlanta developed the controversial and popular social media app, Yik Yak. Tyler Droll and Brooks Buffington rarely give television interviews, but they took me inside their Buckhead headquarters.
So this is a mural of Atlanta yakified. So you see a ton of Atlanta landmarks
Varsity?
that have yaks and yaks colors. Varsity, the Fox
Fox,
Theater.
yeah.
Delta plane up here.
Yik Yak is not your typical corporate office. Tyler Droll and Brooks Buffington are not your typical CEOs. They're 25 years old.
In a typical company, you wouldn't have ping pong and you wouldn't hand out beers either, right?
This is true.
It works for you.
Yeah, we got ping pong, beer on tap, we do game board nights, we ride scooters around the office, all that fun stuff.
Tell me about your corporate environment.
It's chill, relaxed, pretty quiet, hardworking, but very open, and everyone still talks to each other.
Welcome to the world of Yik Yak. Tyler and Brooks developed the app in college. It allows you to send messages to people who are within a certain range.
Tell me about that moment. When it first started to really take off, when you realized you had something that people were finding and using.
I think I was at a sporting event and the person in front of me had it on their phone. And moments like that always kind of take your breath away.
At any given moment on a busy day, a day when you have a lot of traffic, how many people are on your app?
Canada, Ireland, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and the US, over 2,000 campuses. So depending on the time of the day, a lot of users, especially on nights like the Oscars.
Being able to post content anonymously caused Yik Yak to come under fire. Users made headlines for sometimes vicious or threatening messages.
It's really kind of an issue for the industry as a whole, this idea of misuse. I think that we've done a really good job at kind of being at the forefront of some of these things.
The app is no longer accessible at high schools, and users now have the option of choosing a handle or name attached to their posts. The company says it constantly monitors messages.
Any advice to users, though? I mean, are there lines you would suggest they not cross?
So lines that you wouldn't cross in real life or on any other form of social media.
Our mission is about fostering good, positive, local, connections, and whatever steps we need to take to make sure everyone feels safe and has a great experience when they're communicating with their community. We're all about taking those.
Yik Yak launched 3 years ago, and its reported value, $400 million, makes it one of the most successful startups in the country.
Is it harder, though, because you're in Atlanta and not in New York or LA?
I don't think so. I mean, in a lot of ways, I don't think that we would be at the point where we are if we hadn't have been based in Atlanta.
Why?
There's a lot of noise in other cities, right? And so being in Atlanta and being kind of able to launch from here allowed us to really spread our wings and not be trapped in a bubble.
As part of their commitment to staying in Atlanta, Tyler and Brooks have joined the effort to convince other millennials to move here.
What's your pitch for Atlanta? If you're talking to someone who's not from here, who didn't go to college in the Southeast.
Tell them how green it is. We have like tons of trees, which I normally don't see in other places, but it's also a great place to raise a family, great place if you're young, lots of energy in the city, low cost of living, and you can get to just about any environment, mountains, beach, lakes within a few hours.
I think just Atlanta as a whole is a great city. It's kind of, I think, being a native, undergoing this great revitalization right now. And I think the tech scene is kind of riding that wave with it. And so it's a place that people want to live. And so it's not a bad place to bring people to or convince people to, hey, stay here and join our company.
When Rise of the Millennials, a Channel 2 special continues, there's some of the biggest issues facing Metro Atlanta's future. Next, solutions from some millennials. Rise of the Millennials, a Channel 2 special with Fred Blankenship and Linda Stouffer.
Millennials are the most watched group of people. Where they work, how they spend their money, how they vote are being thoroughly studied.
Being in the majority means millennials will make decisions on some of the biggest issues facing our country and our region.
What will Metro Atlanta's neighborhoods, schools, transit system, workforce look like 20, 30 years from now? The millennial generation will be largely responsible for shaping our region's future.
I'm deeply invested in Atlanta. I love the city and I always want to see things improve and be a better place for everybody to live.
Bee Nguyen is taking an active role to make that happen. She participated in the Atlanta Regional Commission's New Voices project. The agency recruited millennials from all over Georgia. They held a series of meetings to tackle some of our region's biggest problems.
In terms of listing top important issues, is it education? Is it transportation? What would you give your top three?
I would say education, transportation, and economic stability for families.
Julie Ralston is with the Atlanta Regional Commission.
Millennials are more well educated, they're more tech savvy, they're more entrepreneurial, and they're bringing an innovative way of thinking to our communities.
Bee is the founder of a nonprofit that helps high school girls build their self-esteem and set goals. So naturally, for the Atlanta Regional Commission Millennial Project, she focused on education.
Does there need to be a change in the public's attitude toward education?
Education should be seen as a resource and not a burden, and that the community needs to see children as our collective kids, whether or not you have kids enrolled in the school in the public system or private or charter, and whether or not you have kids or not. We need involvement not only from people but businesses, and we need to see it as an investment collectively.
What's been your reaction from the education community regarding the suggestions that came from the millennial team?
Primarily the issue is that schools are different and kids are different, and it's really hard to find one solution that works for all schools. But what we really wanted to challenge people to do is change their framework for the way that we do think about kids.
Another huge concern for millennials, Metro Atlanta's constant traffic, congestion, and gridlock.
Atlanta is a great place to live, but we can make it a better place. And if we don't figure out transit access, unfortunately, we're going to lose a lot of the competitive edge that we've got right now. Access to mass transit is really important.
Nick Giuliano led the Atlanta Regional Commission's Millennial Transportation Panel. Their solution involves developing and extending rail transit.
What rail really does is drive development and drive that economic component of this in a way that we don't see with some of the other services.
Instead of building more highways.
You know, every study that's been done that looks at what happens when you add road lanes and add highway lanes just shows that you increase congestion, because then you've just got more people on the roads. It actually does not cut back on traffic.
Nick's group recently created a nonprofit transit organization, Advance Atlanta.
What we're looking to do is partner together everybody in the metro Atlanta region who is in favor of the vision of bringing us all together and linking things via transit.
And you must hear the pushback from people who say, it's too much money, we don't need it, I don't want to pay for other people to take the train.
It's too much money not to do this. It's too much money and lost opportunity for the region.
You see it as that serious?
I think it is. I think these next several years will be a make or break time for transportation and transit here. We're fundamentally one region, and either we sink together or we swim together, and we've really got to learn to swim.
You can see more of my interview with the founders of Yik Yak and a tour of those Buckhead offices on our website, WSB-TV.com. Only on the web, Tyler and Brooks talk about the mistakes they've made and give advice to other entrepreneurs.
We thank you for joining us for Rise of the Millennials. Have a great week.